Well, maybe we'll go ahead and get started. And, I guess, so looking at different ways of doing a sun salutation practice in yoga, I kind of look at, that's what Nancy and I are doing every week, where it's a different way to do mindfulness. It's all still the basic thing, but there's so many different ways to do it, so many different approaches. And, it's helpful to learn new ways of approaching, whether it's our yoga practice or mindfulness or anything. So just grateful that you guys join. So just want to once again welcome everybody here today for another session of practicing mindfulness, meditation. And again, we do this to practice meditation to bring a little more calm to the mind, but also to increase our understanding of how our mind works, what leads to reactivity and stress, and what leads to calm and ease. And hopefully somewhere by doing these practices, the mind naturally learns to move more in the direction of ease once we see what causes us stress. So we'll begin this session as we often do with a short grounding meditation. So just encouraging you, if it's your first time with us, welcome. And but if you're a long time meditator with us, welcome as well. And this is a good time to remember the basic, whatever meditation posture you choose. We want to have a balance between feeling grounded or supported. So find a way of sitting or lying down or standing that we feel supported, whether it's in a chair or on the floor or couch, whatever. But you want to feel good and supported so that your lower body feels like it is literally grounded, being supported from beneath, so we don't have to exert energy. But then we also, in addition to that grounding, inviting a sense of uprightness, inviting the spine to be as long as possible, upright. That brings alertness to the mind. So that combination of the downward support, the uprightness of the spine, but also a sense of relaxation and ease. So it's not a tense uprightness, it's just an alertness, but with some ease. So with those three ways of holding the body and mind, closing the eyes if you're comfortable to avoid visual disturbance, or just having a soft gaze if you're not comfortable having your eyes closed, just not looking around. And we'll let the bell invite us to go into the first meditation. So the bell is the invitation to let go of the process of whatever it took to arrive here today, the logging on, the getting settled, leaving all that process behind, and bringing the awareness inwards. Just the awareness of this body resting on the support, whatever is supporting you, just feeling that we can let this support just happen. The body can relax into it. We don't have to exert ourselves. We can just let the body rest. Maybe there was a lot of running around before you got here, but now is the time to just invite minimal movement, inviting stillness to the body by feeling that support and that rest of the body. And so just as the body is resting on the physical support, we can feel the mind resting in the body, however we sense that. So this awareness, this mindfulness, this awareness is resting in the body. The mind is not separate from the body. So however we perceive this mind relaxing into resting on the body, however you perceive that. And we can set the intention during this meditation to be fully present with our moment-to-moment experience. It's our intention. So we're listening, we're sensing the moment-to-moment experience right here, right now. And maybe we can begin this awareness of this moment-to-moment experience by just listening to sounds. Maybe there's sounds in your immediate environment, whether it's people talking or traffic noise or the sound of your heater or your air conditioner. Or maybe it's a more subtle sound, or even the sound of silence. We can listen to the sound of silence. So these external sounds, the mind is aware of the moment-to-moment changes in these external sounds. Can you be present with that, with curiosity, listening to sounds coming and going, not holding on to any of them, including the sound of my voice. Just receiving each sound and letting it go and waiting till the next one arrives into the awareness. And then we can move our attention further inwards. So rather than listening to external sounds, we can listen to inward sounds. Maybe there's the sound of the breath coming and going. But maybe also sensing body sensations. Or the sounds of your thoughts coming and going, the chatter of the mind. So thoughts, body sensations, sounds created by the body coming and going. These inner sounds. Can you be interested, attentive, present with them as they come and go, not holding on to them, just watching. The mind aware of audible sounds, body sensations, thoughts coming and going, moment to moment. And we can notice if we're still just watching the coming and going of these sounds, thoughts, sensations, moving on, coming and going. Or if we've gotten caught in something, or maybe we've gotten sleepy and we're falling asleep. Could just notice how that, whatever was happening, how the mind and the body feel right now. Just a general sense, is there ease or tension? Is there connection or is there distance? We don't judge any of this, we just notice it's like this. And then we reset the intention to be with these internal sounds, sensations, thoughts coming and going, moment to moment. Can we be curious about what's happening in this mind, in this body? Sound, sensation, thoughts coming and going, and the mind just observing. And we can notice if the mind is still present with this moment-to-moment experience, or if something else going on. The mind might be checking out, sleeping, fantasizing, planning, analyzing, wondering if we're doing it right. We just notice that too. Again, just checking in a general sense of what's the mood of the mind. Is it content, or is it agitated? Is it sleepy? And what's the feeling in the body? Is there relaxation or stress? So we don't judge any of this. We just notice how it is. By doing this over and over again, we get to know the habits in the mind, what the mind's paying attention to, how that affects the mood of the mind and the sensations in the body. And as always, we do this to get to know ourselves better through the simple act of listening, of paying attention to this right here, right now. What's happening right here, right now, moment to moment. It's like this right now. And it's like this right now. It's like this, just this right now. So the ringing of the bell invites us to bring the awareness back to the surface. And as always, just ending the meditation by just reflecting a little bit on what your experience was. Anything you might have noticed that the mind was or was not paying attention to, and how that affected the mood of the mind and the body. And then letting it go and just coming back to being aware, being together here. So in that meditation, there was the invitation to just encourage I call it listening or receptive quality of the mind, to just notice what's happening moment to moment. And so this capacity for listening is something we can do in our meditation to get to know, like I said in the meditation, to get to know the habits of the mind, what it's paying attention to, and what the effect is on the mind. And by doing this, we get to learn more about ourselves. But we're also, especially if you have a really active mind and it didn't want to pay attention, we can notice that too. And we get to practice patience, and just really coming back and retraining, like what's happening here. And we can invite curiosity, not frustration, but just curiosity, like, why can't I pay attention to this? Why is this boring to me? Or maybe something's really interesting and you got caught in that. Or maybe you were content to just be listening to sounds, sensations, thoughts coming and going. And maybe it was very peaceful. Whatever your experience is, by encouraging this, it's quite different from most of what our daily experience is encouraging, right? Where we're trying to multitask and do 20 things at one time, or, we have a 2-second attention span on our electronic device before we go on to the next thing. We never deeply get into anything. And sometimes that's a great way to learn and to be in this world. But I've been reflecting a lot recently on how little we listen to ourselves to really know how to take care of ourselves, like what does lead to ease and what causes tension and that we want to let go of. But also listening to other people, how often we're in conversation with someone and we think we're listening to them, but we're really, they get about 2 words in and we think we know what they're saying already. And then we're off thinking about how we're going to respond to them. We're not really listening. So this training in this allows us to practice listening to ourselves. And I've found that it's made me a more active, patient listener with other people too. And this idea of, what's happening in this moment, letting go of getting caught up in whatever the mind wants to follow, but actually being present what's truly happening here rather than the story that the mind tends to make up about it. And if you think about it, it's so rare in our experience. Like sometimes maybe when we're in nature, maybe you'll see a sunset that's really amazing, or you'll hear a bird sound, like, what's that? It catches your attention and you're really actively listening or experiencing. But most of the time, things are just coming and going during the day and we're not even paying attention. We're not even fully there. And so we're missing a lot of things. And so this deep listening, practicing it in meditation can really be beneficial because it can make our life in the outside world richer too, because we're noticing all these things that we were oblivious to before. And in our conversations with other people, or even if we're watching a podcast or something on TV, most of the time, we have it on the background while we're doing something else. But what happens if you're actively listening? You might really learn something versus, having it go on and there's like, oh yeah, that's interesting. What was I doing here? So this ability to really learn either what's going on in our direct experience or learning from what other sources are telling us, to be an active listener, really being present with the experience, is something that is not being encouraged right now. We're encouraged to be distracted. And so we're missing out on a lot of things. So I just have been inviting myself to really, start listening more intently, whether it's in my meditation, just practice that receiving rather than trying to do something, being the doer, but just practice being receptive to whatever is coming up, and watching when the mind does go off and is bored and wants to think about something, but noticing also, okay, I can bring it back. And if I keep doing that enough, then I notice that there's more ease, has been my experience. And it has increased my patience, which is usually in short supply. So, and so developing patience, attention, and presence can really be beneficial to us, both in being calmer within ourselves, but also being more engaged with the people that we are in conversation with, or in community with, family members. We predetermine what our family members are going to say before they even open their mouth, right? We're not even listening half the time. So, or friends, we're the same way. But, what's really going on? Can we really know that? And so much that we can learn by actually paying attention. So that's, I wanted to explore that a little bit more today. And one of the things might be, listening for something, when somebody is speaking to us, or when we're listening to a podcast or something, we're listening with a specific intent. So we're listening for something, I want to learn this, or I want to understand this. So we can play with the idea of the mind really intentionally looking for something, but also practice with just listening to something, that more receptive, open quality, where we don't have that focus. We actually are more open, and just seeing how that feels in the mind and the body when we listen in those two different ways. Right? So that's a lot of talking about listening. So, but that's kind of what I wanted to explore today. And hopefully this is interesting to you too. If not, the meditation will just be a time for you to be able to practice in silence. So you can notice if the mind is just not interested, but inviting that curiosity about what is the relationship to this moment to moment experience. Can I get interested in it? Can I be patient enough to listen to the more subtle aspects of this mind-body experience, the stuff that we think is normally boring? Maybe there's something there that we can learn from in how our mind and our body are and how we're relating to the experience. So So we'll retake our meditation seat now and just do an active practice of this. So taking your posture, feeling that groundedness, the uprightness, the relaxation. And again, closing the eyes if you're comfortable doing that. And once again, the bell will transition us. So once again, the bell invites us to let go of all the words, the ideas, and come inside and do this exploration of this mind and this body right here, right now. You can just check in to see how it is right now. What's the mood of the mind? Is it still caught in all the ideas? Or maybe it's leaning in, curious what's going to happen next. Or maybe it's already bored and is going to sleep. We can just notice that. And the body, is the energy of the body, is it alert or is it collapsing? And if it is collapsing, just inviting the body to just be a little more upright, invite a little more interest. We'll bring a little energy to this awareness. And after that check-in, we can set our intention in this meditation period. And I offer as an intention, the intention to listen, to be attentive to the moment-to-moment experience right here, right now. And if during this you find that the open awareness of just arising sounds and sensations and thoughts doesn't keep your mind focused, then you could go to your meditation object, your normal one, whatever that would be, the mind or the breath or the body. But then just noticing if the mind does go to something else. But I invite a more open, active listening process, moment-to-moment experience, if that works for you. So we begin with a more active intention. So setting the intention for the mind to pay attention to outside sounds again as they arise, as they fall away. So listening to the outside sounds. Maybe some are loud, maybe some are very subtle. Maybe it's just the sound of air moving past the eardrum. Listening to the sound of my voice, background noises in your room. External sounds coming and going. And notice if the mind can stay engaged with that. If it can stay interested, or maybe if it's relatively quiet, the mind's searching for something else. You can notice that too. Noticing external sound coming and going. And then once again, inviting the mind to move inwards from those external sounds to a more inner listening. So being with internal sounds, maybe the sound of the breath or the heart, or maybe the chatter of the thoughts, or the body sensations as a sensory input. Watching them arise, pass away, this inner listening. Or maybe you hear the inner sound of what we call the sound of silence. It's that tinnitus sound, the electronic sound in the head. Some people hear that. What internal sounds do you hear? And can we just see them come and go? The mind being aware of a thought, sensation, a sound. We can check in and notice if the mind is still aware of sounds, thoughts, sensations coming and going, or if it's gotten lost in thought or lost in sleepiness. Just notice what the mind is paying attention to and what the effect is on the mind and on the body. We don't judge any of this, we just notice. What can the mind stay interested in? So making that invitation again, inviting curiosity. What's really going on right here, right now, in this mind, in this body? The changing nature of sensations, thoughts, sounds, coming and going. And can we just be present with them coming and going? Or do we get caught in something, or do we get bored? Can we be curious about the habits of the mind? So resetting the intention to watch sounds, body sensations, thoughts coming and going. See the mind pick them up and let them go, moment to moment. Checking in with the mind again. Is it still listening to moment experience? Is it still interested? Or has it gone off thinking, falling asleep if it's bored? We don't judge it, we just notice. Notice the effect on the mind and the body, and then we invite the mind to just be present with whatever's coming and going. With curiosity, interest, patience. This is a subtle practice. It may feel boring. But can we invite curiosity? Or can we just notice when the mind, when it's just quiet, the mind just wants to make things up, wants to go off thinking. We can notice that too. So the active listening allows us to notice the changing nature of sensations coming and going, sounds, thoughts, which is the nature of all experience. But if that's too subtle and boring, we can notice when the mind wants to make something up to fill it in. So what's happening with your mind, your body? So resetting the intention to be listening to the sounds, sensations, thoughts coming and going. The mind just observing. See what happens. What is the mind listening to right now? Still with each moment to moment experience, or is it doing something else, thinking, fantasizing, sleeping? Just noticing the effect. And then re-inviting this awareness to be present with what's happening right here, right now. And you can keep practicing that active listening as you have been. or have an invitation to soften the awareness even further rather than kind of listening for something. Just soften the awareness to make it more receptive and just be aware of the awareness and then see what just shows up rather than actually kind of the awareness looking for something. So if this makes sense as softening and just receiving, you can practice that way, or just stay observing the moment to moment sounds, sensations, thoughts coming and going. Can we stay interested in this experience? What's happening now? What experience is the mind receiving right now? How does that affect the mood of the mind, the well-being of the body? This moment-to-moment awareness allows us to learn more about ourselves. Can we be present with whatever's happening? And we can broaden our awareness again to, rather than being the internal, to reopening to the external sounds, the environment around us. So we're changing the attention to a more external awareness and just notice what shift that intention brings, including awareness of this voice giving instruction. And whatever sounds in your room, does that change the overall feeling of how the mind is? Or maybe it doesn't change anything. You can notice that too. But learning to be more receptive, to notice how to pay attention to what's happening right here, right now. Listening to the sounds, the sensations, our thoughts, and the external things that are coming our way, and just noticing how the mind and the body respond to them. The more we listen, the more we learn. The more we listen and deepen our practice, the more subtle our learning, the deeper our learning is about ourselves and the world. This is our practice. So the bell invites us to bring the awareness back to the surface again. And just taking a moment to reflect on what you might have noticed during that sit. It's different ways of being aware of listening, whether it's to external, is that more interesting to you than your own internal processes? Or did you learn something about yourself by watching what the habits of the mind are? Or maybe you slept through the whole thing and you can notice that too. Or maybe you were lost in the story through the whole thing and notice that, that paying attention is not always easy. So with all of these things, this is how we learn more about ourselves. So I offer that for this week's invitation to experiment with, and hope you'll join Nancy and me next week. So thank you so much.